So it's a big weekend in the United Kingdom. Queen Elizabeth II celebrating her Platinum Jubilee. The 96-year-old monarch has spent 70 years on the throne, and while quite frail, she did make an appearance on the balcony of Buckingham Palace to greet the thousands of well-wishers today. I'm joined now by our London correspondent, Olly Barrat. Good evening, Olly. So the festivities have begun.
We're allowed then to walk up slowly towards the palace and fill the whole road that leads up to Buckingham Palace. Tens and tens of thousands of people were there to try and get a glimpse of the Queen, and she came back onto the balcony with those senior working royals, Charles and Camilla, William and Kate and their children, and a few others, not Harry and Meghan. And we saw that fly past through central London. 6 minutes it took for the 70-odd planes to get over Buckingham Palace. There were so many of them, and she beamed at that. She really did seem to be enjoying it, and she did seem to be enjoying that moment when the military inspection, the Trooping the Colour event finished as well. Of course, a huge amount of speculation leading up to this weekend about how much we would see her, given her mobility issues and some of the comfort issues that Buckingham Palace have been telling us about, and that have led to her cancelling some events in the early part of this year. But there's just some hope, I think, among her fans that over this weekend we might actually end up seeing a little bit more of her than some people had been expecting.
So I would have assumed that everyone was a royalist this weekend, but it seems not so. There was a bit of a disruption at one point, wasn't there? Tell us more.
Right at the beginning of the Trooping the Colour, as the troops were making their way from Buckingham Palace down the Mall to the Horse Guards Parade, which is just by Downing Street, which is where that big ceremony, that ceremonial event takes place, we saw a number of protesters rush into the road and try and block the proceedings. Now, police dealt with it within moments, but we've just heard from the Metropolitan Police this evening that 12 arrests have been made. These were protesters who were campaigning about animal rights, and so it is absolutely the case that not everyone is celebrating over the course of this weekend. The polls do suggest that the majority of Britons still very much like the Queen and still approve of the idea of the monarchy as a British institution, but that's not to say that applies to everyone. But then again, Thursday's a holiday, Friday's a holiday, then we've got the weekend. It's a 4-day extravaganza of partying and events, so some people, even if they're not massive fans of the royals and the institution of monarchy, even some of those people are getting stuck into some of the parties and street gatherings that we're seeing over the next few days.
So talk to us about which royals are public-facing and which are not. I understand Harry and Meghan are in town, but they might not be doing the balcony because they're not what's known as working royals. And of course we have to ask about Prince Andrew. Is he going to make an appearance?
He is not, and there are a couple of reasons for that. I mean, we didn't expect to see much of him at all over the course of this weekend. We thought that the one event that we might see him at would be at St Paul's Cathedral, just behind me here in central London. That's the Thanksgiving service on Friday. We thought he might be there just as a member of the family rather than with any role to play there. But we've just been told by the palace that he has tested positive for COVID-19 and won't be going to that event. Now, the palace say that he has seen the Queen recently, but not since he tested positive. You have to say that that raises concerns about whether the virus might therefore spread amongst other members of the family over the course of this important weekend. But assuming it doesn't, then Harry and Meghan we do expect to see a bit more of over the rest of the weekend. Today they are not senior working royals anymore as a result of the decision that they made to separate themselves from the institution in that way and move to the United States. So that's the reason they weren't on the balcony. A couple of long lens photographers have spotted them, though. They were inside Buckingham Palace, just behind the balcony when that was all taking place. We've seen some pictures of them travelling around central London in cars as well, but you get the sense that today they've tried to keep a low profile to avoid accusations that they've come here to overshadow the Queen's Jubilee. Saturday, by the way, is Lilibet, their daughter's birthday, and the Queen hasn't met her before this weekend, so we may well see some private meetings as well between Harry and Meghan and the Queen and their children, and I'm sure we'll expect to see some photographs through the weekend as well. But all eyes on how those relations are playing out, particularly between, of course, William and Harry.
It looks like a beautiful day there, and we've been loving the images coming through. The flypast was spectacular. I mean, it looks absolutely splendid. We know that there's festivities planned throughout the weekend. Was this the main day, though, or is it actually going to get even more exciting and spectacular?
Today was absolutely key to the Jubilee events, and the weather, I mean, look, it helps. The Jubilee 10 years ago, it was miserable, and people enjoyed it and they had fun, but when it's pouring down with rain half the time and it's cold and you're sopping wet, it's not great for the people who are out in the streets trying to celebrate. One interesting thing to say about that is that the weather forecast for the weekend actually isn't great, so things could take a little bit of a turn for the worse Saturday and Sunday, but there's lots planned. And you mentioned that flypast. I was stood right here and it went right over my head, and it lasted 6 minutes with these 70-odd planes going over, which were old planes, new planes, Spitfires and Hurricanes from the Second World War, planes and helicopters that have recently been used in Afghanistan and to support the Ukraine crisis as well, the Red Arrows and their trails of blue, white and red that they left across the sky just going in that direction over to the palace. I think today for many people will be one of the absolutely key days of this 4-day weekend.
Yeah, what a special time. 70 years on the throne. Incredible. Olly Barrat in London. Have fun this